So, Guitars Exchange, we are with Rod Jones from Idlewild. Thank you, Rod.
A pleasure. Hi.
For spending some time with us today. May I ask you what you've been up to today?
Today I've actually been recording some guitar for a record with a friend Fernando, otherwise known as Ecstatic 5, working on his second record, so yeah, producing that and playing some guitar on it. The last record really was written in a very different way to start with. It was, historically we've changed direction quite often, every record a little bit, new members coming and going, different writing styles, different influences. The Everything Ever Written was really, myself and Roddy had started writing together after a 5-year break, and just kind of almost threw ideas at the wall. We spent 2 days together, having not written for years together, and probably put down 15 ideas in an afternoon, each afternoon. A good portion of that made it onto the record, and that's the way we quite often work. We grab those ideas and then the ones that stick we kind of embellish and grow.
Right.
But that was then taken to Colin, our drummer, who's been in the band from the beginning in '95 as well. And then we introduced new members, Lucci and Andrew, as the record went on. So there was quite a lot of people coming and going as the record was made. It was a bit more, built bit by bit that way, that record. Whereas this record, we felt we wanted to make because the band felt like a new band. We had these 2 new members who really fitted into the band in a way that it felt like it was a new band, and we wanted to present that. So a lot of it's been written more together, lots of influences and lots of songs being pulled in lots of different directions, which is what interests me about a band rather than a singer-songwriter. It's a summation of 5 different personalities and opinions, which can be difficult, but it can also be creative goldmine. So it's been a long process. It's been a couple of years in the making, probably 3 or 4 in terms of writing and recording actually. And songs have gone through various drafts almost. We started recording it in Los Angeles when we were out there on tour, and then came back here to our studio, did a couple of sessions, and then got a little bit stuck, as you always do mid-record, I think, and brought back our old long-term producer Dave Eringer to do 3 or 4 songs with us. I think 4 or 5 songs actually with us, to just kickstart us again. When one of the band's got their own studio, sometimes the problem is that it's difficult to tie people down to actually turning up all the time and being around at the same time. So we thought, if we get a producer in Dave that we know and we book him in, then everyone will have to be there, and we'll actually get something done. And it did. It sort of gelled the record. It gave it a focal point again, and then we were able to go back to all the other stuff we'd done, which the other 7 or 8 songs, and start to piece them together with that as a kind of focal point, which has worked really well actually. And so it's quite an interesting, disparate record. It's tiny bit more explorative. Some of the songs that we've done with Dave are very classic, Idlewild recorded by Dave, which is what some of the fans definitely want. It's more straight ahead in that way, whereas the rest of it goes off on various tangents. I think actually the first single that we're putting out, Dream Variations, which is it's actually one of the first ones we recorded for the record. I think it's a good blend of the styles on the record. It's classic Idlewild in a way that it's sort of a catchy hook and intelligent rock music, which is what I always think we do, basically. Lyrically, lyrics very important in our band. Whereas, although it actually goes off on quite a few tangents itself, so it kind of pins the record together. I think that song felt like a good way to introduce. It's not a stereotypically obvious single. There are ones on the record that are much more straight ahead, sort of obvious radio singles, but we thought this time actually be interesting to start with a slightly odder song. Guitar was late. I was probably 16 actually. It was an 3/4 neck encore something. I have no idea. Pardon my French, piece of shit.
Right.
My parents are both classical musicians, so my mum's a soprano, my father's a conductor and was a concert pianist. So from an early age, I was playing violin, piano, trombone, and finally, I think after years and years of nagging, being allowed a guitar, and I suppose because I had learned in such a traditional method with everything else, doing the grades and the traditional sort of lesson route. When it came to guitar, I was like, no, I want to teach myself. I don't want to go that route anymore. So I would literally listen to things like Sonic Youth records and just try and work out how they played them. Work out the tunings and sort of self-taught myself that way. And in a sense that I still struggle with when people go, oh yeah, this scale and this augmented whatever, and I'm like, I don't know, I just play the guitar the way I play it. It's much more by ear than by theory.
Okay.
Which was, I suppose, a reaction to that upbringing in a way. At that time, probably people like Thurston Moore from Sonic Youth was a big influence on me, in the way that you didn't have to, it didn't have to be all scales and how fast can you play and how many finger taps can you do per second. It was about imagining the guitar in a completely different way. It was almost like an anti-guitar. Well, he is an anti-guitar hero, really. I mean, for a lot of people. And then melodically, people like Bob Mould from Husker Du and Sugar. Those records had a big influence on me melodically at that point.
Right.
So yeah, sort of a blend of that kind of alt kind of dissonance of Thurston Moore, but with the sort of melodic catchiness of Bob Mould is where I probably learned most of my, and people like Peter Buck, obviously R.E.M. were a huge influence on me as well. I mean, we've always got on with everybody we toured with. I mean, some bands of that size, I suppose, are a little bit more detached from everybody else in the arena. But certainly when we were touring with Blur and with who we were label mates with at the time, and with Pearl Jam, who are just the nicest people you'll ever meet, treated us so well. And R.E.M., who would watch us every night, and for us collectively as a band, huge R.E.M. fans.
Yes.
So that was a real moment for us. To have that. It's almost like validation. So, I mean, lots of these bands we've toured with, everybody's always been nice people, and we always get on well with them. Bands that we've taken out on tour, like Twilight Sad, we still remain friendly with, and bands like Frightened Rabbit and all of these bands that we've toured with, we've remained friends with most of them. I can't think of any that we haven't. Obviously, as I say, there are bands that you're a little more detached from on for possibly insurance reasons, I don't know. You get your sort of 10 minutes with the Rolling Stones when you play with them, and you shake their hand. And but again, outside of that, they would come up onto the stage and have a chat with you, and nice people. I mean, I think generally musicians who have done that well or are making interesting music are intelligent people who understand that there's no point in being an asshole. Obviously that amount of success can go to your head to some extent, but yeah, I've yet to meet one of them that wasn't, that was a disappointment. Let's put it that way.
Yes.
I mean, completely different from each one. I mean, McCready's in Pearl Jam probably the more traditional guitar hero style of playing, isn't he? He's much more it's much more it much more is about the sort of the technical ability, I think, with him than it is maybe. The Edge obviously has his sound, like it's undeniable. It's that sort of gated delay thing that you can tell him a mile away. And he's made it his own, and that's something that I admire in all guitar players who you can recognise them. Which much easier for a singer, obviously, when they've got a distinctive voice. But if you can recognise a drummer or a guitar player or even a bass player, I think that's really means you've really honed your craft, and he's definitely done that. I think Peter Buck, again, an influence on me. I think as the story goes, I think he originally was going to be the keyboard player in R.E.M., and then Mike Mills was going to play the guitar, who was a much more trained guitar player, I think, as well. And then someone didn't have an instrument or something, and they swapped around, and as I say, the rest is history. But I think that sort of almost feeling his way into it as he was, and learning how to do things his own way is what I kind of resonates with me. You know, that idea of you don't have to do things the right way.
Mm.
I think that record was obviously our most popular record by quite a distance. Commercially, I think it hit at a time where we were on a major label. There was a bit of momentum after 100 Broken Windows, which is the sort of fan favourite of that era. There was a lot of expectation, and I think coming back with a song with a universalist lyric like that, you know, and a catchy hook, I think that it's a very obvious single, you know, and it was a very obvious kind of progression of a band who'd made a cult sort of hit record to then making a slightly more ambitious one in that way. I always assumed that American English is the second most popular one on Spotify, but apparently not. But Modern Way, I think, yeah, that just is one that resonates with those fans of 100 Broken Windows and earlier Idlewild. It's sort of a noisy punk rock song, essentially, you know, but maybe produced into more sort of modern rock. And again, yeah, it's a fan favourite live. It's one of those songs that, you know, now that we are as long in the tooth as we are, you know, 23 years into a career, that when people come to the shows and they want to look back to that, that's one of those songs that, you know, it's good fun to see live, and there's a good portion of our fans that, you know, obviously want that every time we play. World in Your Arms is one of these ones, I think, that it's one of these songs that crossed that sort of alt rock to mainstream divide, you know. It crossed over in a way that becomes more and more difficult for bands now, partially I think because of the way that radio now is almost segregated a little bit. You know, you have your Six Music, which is like, okay, as a guitar band, let's stick them on Six Music, which is a much lower listenership than Radio 1, for example. Whereas in the day you would have like a specialist show on Radio 1 that would play, and if you got playlisted there, you were getting played to people who wouldn't usually buy that kind of music. So, you know, now you're kind of preaching to the converted already, so you rarely get bands that cross over in that way, which is a shame. But it was a song that did that, you know. I think it got used on computer games and this sort of thing, you know, and it was the one that's always going to stick around in that. You know, I suppose the person you meet at a party who's like, oh, what do you do? And you tell them what you do, and they're like, I don't think I know the band. And then someone tells them that song, and they go, oh yeah, FIFA, whatever, you know, or you know, or saw it in this movie or whatever. It's that song. I think, funnily enough, when we wrote it, we didn't think it was a single even, actually, and it wasn't until I think when we were working with Dave in the studio that we had the string section in, and you know, the label was still like, I'm not sure what the single is, and Dave was like, well, this is obviously the single. What you just need to do is we need to re-record it with the chorus at the start. And then we did that, and then obviously, and then, oh yeah, that's the single now. And it's funny how that outside perspective can be so important in that process of, like, you know, actually, if you just move this over here, then it turns into that. Oh, right, okay. And that's certainly someone I've learned most of my production skills, maybe not engineering skills, but my production skills of how to work with people and how to have that overview of what's going on from him in that way. You know, I think just because we worked together for so many years, you know, on so many albums. It's on a shelf somewhere at the moment. Okay. We're again with sort of 5 people that all do lots of other things. 3 of the band have their own music projects that they do. Jackie with Brave Little Note, Sean with his band Dante, Steve is in about 19 bands. David, our bass player, now lives out in Boston, so it's not that easy for us to put on a gig or record. I think it's a group of people that I really enjoy working with and writing with, and I think at some point in the future we'll do something. It's just when it's the right time, I guess, and when we've all got the time. Definitely at the moment I've got too many things going on, as do we all, but you know, whether it be with mental health projects or whether it be with the studio or with the band's record coming out and the impending quarter of a century anniversary, you know, that we'll be busy for a few years. It was a record, myself and Emma Pollock set up. We were doing a lot of work with the Mental Health Foundation, trying to get music into their festival that they put on once a year, We realised the impact of that and the immediacy that music has in terms of PR, even, you know. So we wanted to do something that had a longer lifespan. So we had this idea of making a collaborative record of Scottish musicians. Yes, 8 years ago, God. So recently we've done a few other sort of satellite projects with the Fruit Tree, some mentoring with younger musicians. Been developing a method of songwriting workshops for bettering mental health, which has been done in partnership with Creative Scotland. And now we're in the early stages of putting together another project, which is all I can really say about it at this point. But a much bigger project, if it all pays off. Yeah, it's a 1964 Fender Jaguar that I was lucky enough to almost steal. I bought very cheaply, assuming, as I did, and the person I bought it from, I think that it had been resprayed badly. As it turns out, it just happened to be a particular rare undercoat that it had. It's got some wear and tear. Well, I mean, it sounds like a pre-CBS Fender Jaguar. It sounds great. It's a favourite. It's one I rarely gig with, obviously, because it's worth a fair amount of money. And I don't. Again, it's a very specific guitar. It's one of those things that it has a sound, and it's not right for everything. But it's when you need that sound, there's nothing else that will do it.
Okay.
But yeah, it has a lot of sentimental value. It's probably my favourite looking guitar that I have, and certainly it's the one that when you can't get anything else to fit, it just does it. Yeah, he's probably been heavily used on everything we've ever recorded, I would say. So I probably would, actually. I've got one little AC-15 that I've. I mean, my workhorse amp is a Mesa Lone Star that I use live. It's such a versatile amp. I use it for, in the studio and live on almost everything we've ever done. But I actually have one in the States and one here. And they both sound almost identical, and I know I could probably get another one if I had to. Whereas I have one AC-15 standard one with the reverb, which is, I think, a 90s one actually, but that just sounds better than any of the other ones I've ever tried, and I've never been able to find another one that sounds as good. So I'd probably take that. It's probably not worth a lot of money, but it just does what I want it to do. It's beaten around and seen better times, but it still sounds the way I want it to. So yeah, probably those pedals. I mean, yeah, probably this little thing. I don't even know what you would call it. It's based on a Jeff Tweedy fuzz pedal I got from Wilco. A friend of mine designed it in New York, who was in a band called the Jaguar Club, who supported us on tour in the US last time, and he started making some pedals and sent me one, and again I use it on everything. It's great. It's one of those, again, that has a very unique sound, that when you've got a wall of guitars and you need to get something to cut through, it just sits it in a very unique space. But yeah, it's great, and I like that it's one of a kind as well. I'd say probably either teach yourself everything or get taught everything and then forget it.
Right.
It depends on what you're playing. I mean, like I remember having this chat with this fairly famous jazz musician once, who said that you can really only play jazz twice in your life. Once when you know nothing, and once when you know everything and you're completely fearless about it. And I think, as a guitar player, I think quite often it's easy to be too, and certainly in my genre of music, it's easy to be too slick and lose personality then. However, saying that, there are some technically incredible guitarists who then have, right, I know all of that and now I'm going to develop it my own way. I didn't come at it that way. As I say, I came at it from a completely self-taught, I like the way this sounds standpoint, which is why I think I have a recognisable sound. And I think that's the thing, is trying to put your own imprint on it, make yourself sound unique. as a session player, yes, you need to be able to emulate lots and lots of people, or be able to do, you know, the classic Nashville thing or the classic funk thing or whatever it is. But if you're setting out on your own in your own music, I'd say that the most important thing is to have an identity, you know, a sonic identity, and a style of playing, and a character to what you do. And certainly the easiest way to do that is to not train yourself properly. Not saying that you should quit college and do all those things, but yeah, leave college. God, probably touring a bit. We don't tour like we used to. We don't do sort of 18-month slog world tours anymore. But you know, we'll certainly tour the UK, possibly go to America or Japan, do some festivals. But that'll sort of be interspersed in little pockets over the year, and the rest of the time I'll be here producing records, making records. I've got a few projects on the go, working with an exciting new artist from Edinburgh called Hamish Hawke, who sort of helped manage as well. So working on getting his record out and finished. More of the same, yeah, really just producing what comes in. And trying to see where this record goes. I mean, for us, we're at a point now where success is it's an odd word anyway, but you know, at this stage in your career, when you've been doing it for as long as you have, and people are still coming to, you know, to fairly big concerts. Excited to hear new music from you. That is a success already for me. So, you know, I think what we want is to be able to go and do some fun festivals, play some nice places, maybe go to a few places we haven't been before, and you know, put a record in front of those people and see how it resonates, I suppose, and then we can think about what we do next. As I say, you know, 2020 will be the 20th anniversary of one of our sort of cult records. It'll be 25 years of the band. There's an anniversary around every corner now, that's the thing. So I think this will be the one that we probably focus on. You know, it's like this will be the anniversary thing that we do, because it's a long time, quarter of a century, you know, it's over half of our lives, you know. So we'll probably do something around that, I would imagine. Maybe, you know, celebrate certain records in certain countries or whatever, but and then I guess we'll see where we're at. I don't know, we might take a break again, I don't know. You know, sometimes you just need to decompress for a while and think about why you want to do it. You know, and we're at that point now, I think, where we don't have to do this now, you know. Well, we never had to do it, but I think we'd got to a point before we took the break where we were starting to feel like we'll have to make a record now, you know, and to keep going. And that felt like the wrong reason, so we stopped instead, and took a break until we just really wanted to make a record. And you know, that will come again at some point. But you know, we'll see how this one goes and how the sort of anniversary goes, and see what mindset we're all in, you know. But you know, while people are still coming to the shows and people are still interested to hear us make new music, then I guess we'll keep doing it.
Rod Jones, thank you very, very much for talking to Guitars Exchange.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
No, thank you.
Thank you.